I'll be straightforward with this. Video editing is only the first part of so many things that goes into an entire process called the post-production. After all the cuts are in place, the next rounds go to color correction, color grading, VFX, reviews, packaging. If you're freelancing like myself who takes on so many departments at once, I don't want to get burned out early on because there's a good chance that my client will ask for changes to be done and I still need to be in shape to deliver it. So all things considered, this is what brought me to find ways to ease up the production pipeline without rushing and without having to work any harder. So in just a few minutes, I'll show you everything that I do to accelerate the video editing process. Tip number 1, working with proxy. A proxy is basically a knockoff imitation of the same footage. So instead of working directly with, let's say, raw 6K or 8K or 20K footage by default, I can simply work with proxy that may be lower in quality, but much faster to read on my computer. I generate proxies by loading all the footage into Adobe Media Encoder, give them H.264 MP4 output in lower resolution and low bitrate, then I sit back and let it run its course. Once all the transcoding are done, I go back to Premiere and link all the proxies to their original footage. In Premiere 2019, there's also this button here that allows you to toggle between proxy and original, another here to toggle between with and without effect controls. These two together also help speed up reviewing your cuts. In older versions of Premiere like a CS6 and backward, I will make all the footage offline and link them temporarily to proxies. Then I just make sure to revert them to original footage prior to final export. Working with proxy is totally optional and not all projects require it. But if I see myself working with heavy footage and complex editing that I don't want to deal with long buffer times, working with proxy can speed up editing significantly. Moving on to tip number 2, color label. On Premiere, there's an option to customize the color of your footage and audio. This has a few preemptive advantages. Let me show you 2 of my typical scenarios. When editing short films with a story progression, I label my color by sequence or by location. That way, right off the bat, I already segmented all my uncut footage into smaller and more manageable chunks. The good thing about this method is that by the time editing is done, I can easily distinguish all the locations just by the look of the colors, which also saves time when color correcting per location. When it comes to music videos, and let's take dance cover for example, I label the footage by shot distance, long shot, close-ups, inserts. That way I can distinguish my shot order inside the multicam tree, and even when I collapse the multicam sequence by the time I'm done editing, I can still see all the cuts by color label. More on multicam editing in a moment. Here's another way to color label the project with markers by pressing M on the keyboard. It can be stretched, it can be applied in different colors, and it can also be applied everywhere on the timeline, video, and audio. These are typically used as warning signs, writing a note, or narrow down parts of the project that require VFX. Here's one more way to use color label. It's a bit rare, but it becomes useful when the timeline is already saturated by color labels and overlapping markers. This one has to do with using adjustment layers that does nothing to the project by default, but more markers can be added in. I can tell you by experience that some projects can really go that far. Tip number 3, multicam setup. This is particularly useful for music video and productions that have more than one camera operating at the same time. On Premiere, it's possible to stack up footage of the same takes with the same audio track and synchronize them all at once into a multicam sequence. In the case of this dance cover where all the footage follow the same audio track, I can select all the footage and audio, right-click on creating multicam sequence, and that's it, it's all synchronized. Now this is where things get interesting. By the press of the numbers, I can toggle around all the clips instantly. Notice that all the footage play at the same time. That obviously requires a lot of processing power, and that's why it's even more important to create proxies for multicam sequence. Working with multicam usually helps me finish editing a music video within a day, and that pretty much leaves me the rest of the week to figure out color corrections, animations, and find out any colorful or sparkly overlays that I can add to make the video shine even more. So there you go, 3 ways to accelerate your video editing process. It mostly comes down to having your computer work with as little effort as possible while keeping your timeline clean and organized. One more thing I could add is about creating as many folders and subfolders as you see needed to keep your project files in order, because it's very easy to drag and drop and it can get messy very quickly. So to all the aspiring video editors watching this, I hope this helps you waste as little time on the boring cleanup parts so you can maximize all your time on the fun and creative side of editing, because essentially editing is fun. I mean, you're granted this power to bend time and fix people's mistakes so they can look perfect on camera, much like superheroes granted superpowers. You want to use it for the good. Obviously. Thank you very much for watching. I'll talk about VFX next time. Cheers.